Hello YouTube, welcome back to another lesson. Today I'm going to explain you the invertebrate animals. We have seen already the general characteristics of the animal kingdom. So today let's start with the invertebrate animals. As you can see here in this picture, there's a squid. You remember that word, calamar. So in this is a real squid, and here you can see an old drawing of a giant squid attacking a ship. I don't know if you have heard this word before, the Kraken. Okay, so the Kraken is a legendary animal, legendary monster that has fascinated people for centuries and horrified sailors all over the world. Here you can see a picture taken from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. I hope you know this novel. It's like a very old science fiction novel, and a gigantic monster, humongous monster in the sea attack ships and sailors. So this image of a sea monster with tentacles, it has been around for centuries, right? So is the Kraken real? It really exists, these kind of animals? Well, yes, maybe they are not so big like this one in the picture, or they don't attack the ships or sailors, but we discovered this kind of animals a long time ago. In the 19th century, Jepetus Steenstrup, a Danish zoologist, discovered this kind of animals studying the beak, el pico, of one of these animals. And he realized that this type of squids, calamares, they should be very big, like a giant squid. And he named it Architeuthis ducks, right? So these are the giant squids. But after that, for example, this article is from 2018. We have discovered bigger and bigger animals, giant squids, and we found some giant squids as long as 15 meters long. Here you can read it. 15-meter long. This is a human being, and this is the sea monster, right? The giant squid. So yes, it's real, and sailors and fishermen usually found it. For example, this is an article from Asturias. They found a giant squid of 10-meter longs. Here I will give you a link to a video in YouTube where you can see a giant squid alive in the sea that some scientists could record with a camera, and they use like an artificial jellyfish with like a ball. You can see in the video like a sphere made of metal with a light inside that simulates a jellyfish to attract these animals, these squids, and they could record it alive, because usually we found them dead. Right, so these monsters that inspire, these animals inspire the writers to create their fictions or novels about sea monsters, right? But they are based on real animals. Okay, I use this image or this story about the squid, the giant squid, because giant squids are the largest invertebrate animals in the world. So this can give you an idea of that the invertebrate group is the most diverse group of animals on Earth. Okay, you can find the largest number of species, and there's a huge variety of animals, from a snail to a giant squid. You can see a very wide range of sizes. The main characteristic, as you know already, they don't have spinal column or backbone. That's the main characteristic of these invertebrate animals. This is a fun fact. More than 95% of known animal species are invertebrates. So, yes, it's the largest group on Earth. Sometimes we don't pay attention to these tiny animals. We consider that they are not very important, but they play a very important role in the ecosystem, and the number of invertebrates is huge. Okay, they can live in terrestrial environments like this snail or a butterfly or a mosquito, but also you can find aquatic animals, invertebrate animals. You can find sea snails, you can find shrimps, for example. What else? Starfish. Okay, you have a large variety of animals in sizes, in habitats, and shapes. You can find a wide range. Okay, some invertebrates can move. Okay, this snail can move, so we say is motile, but others cannot move. They are called sessile. They live fixed to the bottom of the sea, or fixed to the rocks. For example, the oysters or mussels, they live fixed to the rock or attached to the bottom of the sea. And most invertebrates have some kind of skeleton. Okay, this sounds a little bit confusing, but it's not. They don't have a backbone, but they have some sort of skeleton. I mean, they usually have an exoskeleton, an outer skeleton outside of the body, right? So these are the main characteristics of the invertebrate animals. Let's see now the main groups. The principal invertebrate groups are these 8 groups. First of all, in green, I put the most primitive and simplest organisms. Porifera, which are sponges, and Cnidaria. Cnidaria, sorry. Cnidarians are the jellyfish, right? So these are the most primitive, and in this lesson I will explain both of them. Then we have another big group, which I used blue color, which is the worms, los gusanos. And you can find 3 different types of worms that you can find in your book in page 104. You have the platyhelminths, you can find nematodes, and you can find annelids. Okay, these are three types of worms. Platyhelminths are flat worms, right? Nematodes are cylindrical, okay, like a cylinder, um, and they are usually very small, and they are parasites and produce illnesses. And then you have annelids, that the main example is the earthworm, la lombriz de tierra. Good. Then we have another important group, the mollusks. Mollusks are, for example, the snail, also the squid, but another example is the oyster, the bivalves, right? Okay, these kind of organisms with two shells are also mollusks. The other group, which is very important, is the arthropods. The arthropods is the largest group of the inside the invertebrate animals. So most of the species of invertebrates are or belongs to the group of arthropods. One example is are the insects. Here you can see a wasp, right? So it's just an example of these organisms. Spiders also are an example, or shrimp is an example of arthropods. They have an exoskeleton. And the last group are the echinoderms. Echinoderms, the word means like a spike skin, something like that, with con pinchitos. And the main example is the starfish or sea star, right? So in the following lessons, I will explain every of these groups, right, in more detail. The next or the first group is going to be Porifera, okay, Phylum Porifera. Here you have a beautiful picture of a Porifera. This kind of animals, first of all, they don't look like animals. If you see this image, you can think this is like a stone, or this is like maybe a plant, but nobody think that this is an animal, right? Because it's very different from what we are used to see or to know as animals. So let's see the main characteristics of this group. Okay, first of all, Porifera is a word that comes from Latin that means pore bearer. That means in Spanish que tiene poros, right? And all of them are sponges. We call them sponges, esponjas. What else? Most of these animals are marine. All living, but you can find some sponges, some porifera, living in fresh water, but they are like an exception. Most of them are marine. They are sessile. That means that they live attached to the soil. This porifera, this sponge, live fixed to this rock, okay, at the bottom of the sea. Okay, their nutrition, they are filter feeders, right? we know what this means is that they can filter seawater to take the organic matter and the nutrients from the sea, from the water. Also, they don't have symmetry. So they are the most primitive group, and their bodies, they don't have symmetry. Okay, they are very irregular. The shape is like a sack or like a bag. It's a, let's make a simple drawing. Okay, the shape of a sponge is usually like this. It's like an empty bag. Okay, this is a little bit a fat sponge, but this is the ground, and this is the like a, this is half of the sponge, right? So this is the main shape. The body is supported by an internal skeleton made of spikes that they are called spiculas or spicula, right? This one. So they are like spikes made of carbon, calcium carbonate, sorry. Okay, the body has some spicule like this, right? That support the structure, the shape of the sponge, and they are a little bit flexible also. You can imagine a natural sponge that you can find in the, or you can buy in the supermarket. The natural sponges are in fact dead sponges. Son esponjas muertas. Okay, and you can touch them and feel that they are a little bit flexible. Okay, so let's move on. Inside the, or the structure of the of an sponge is very simple. They are very simple organisms. They are few types of cells. And how is the nutrition? Okay, so we say that the body is full of pores, agujeros, poros, right? Pores. So the seawater enter into the central cavity. Okay, the central cavity is the empty space inside the sponge. The water enter inside the cavity and then moves up and goes out. Water goes out through this big hole on top of the sponge, which is called the osculum. Right? So water do this movement. The water is moved by these special cells with a flagellum. Okay? Because the origin, the ancestors of the sponges, of the Porifera, are flagellate protoctists that they join together, and thanks to evolution they become porifers, right? So this tiny flagellum move the water and create this flow of water, and they can capture and take the nutrients from the water and carry them inside their body, okay, to feed the rest of the cells. Basically, this is the structure or the way the sponges take the nutrients. Finally, I'm going to talk about the reproduction of Porifera. You don't have this in your book, but I think it's very important. they have both sexual and asexual reproduction, and the asexual reproduction is by budding. So if this is a sponge, a new bud is formed, and from this bud is going to grow, okay, to grow and to create a another sponge. Okay, this is the way, one way that they have that they can use to for the reproduction. Sexual reproduction, they expel the sperm and the gametes, the male and female gametes, through the osculum to the water, and the fertilization take place in the water. Okay, so this is the sexual reproduction of Porifera. Good. I think I hope is it clear. If you have any questions, as always, you can ask me. Okay, and the next group is the phylum Cnidaria. The main examples of Cnidaria are the hydras. Hydra, you have anemones, sea anemones, like this or this. Then you have polyps. Polyps are these tiny animals that you can barely see in this image. That they are the white dots surrounding the coral. Okay, so these are the polyps. And the other group is the medusa or jellyfish, right? So these are the main examples inside the Phylum Cnidaria. What are the main characteristics? Well, they usually live in the ocean. Okay, they are marine. Also, some of them can move freely, like the jellyfish. Okay, they can swim, but some of them, like this polyp, they are sessile and live attached to the bottom of the sea. They are predators. So they hunt their prey. They use the tentacles to catch other animals and to eat them, right? So they are carnivorous predators. That they hunt actively. Good. And the shape of these organisms is very simple. They have two body shapes, or two body forms, right? So the one of them is the polyp. Okay, this is the polyp, and the shape is like a jar. Okay, it's like a jar. At the top of the jar, there's a hole, which is the mouth and anus. Okay, it is used to take water in and to expel water outside, right? So it has this double function. Then there is an gastrovascular cavity, because they are hollow, they are empty inside. Okay, there's a hollow inside. And what else? I think this is these are the main parts. Surrounding this hole, the mouth, you can find tentacles. Okay, so the tentacles are on top of the body in the case of polyps. The other body form is the medusa. And the medusa is exactly the same, but in the opposite way. So the shape is like an umbrella, right? It's like an umbrella. The mouth and anus are in the bottom part, and at the top you can find the gastrovascular cavity. Surrounding the tentacles you can find the surrounding the mouth, sorry, you can find the tentacles. So it's the same like a polyp, but upside down. Good. So these are the main parts. Here you can read some of them, that is, we don't need to learn them. But tentacles, mouth, anus, gastrovascular cavity are the three main parts of these animals. Okay, they have special cells that they are called cnidocytes. Cnidocytes are cells which they have like a harpoon or an arrow that is inside the cell with a spring, con un muelle. And there's also a lid, una tapa, to keep them inside. When something touches this cell, then there is a chemical reaction that liberates the spring, and this make the arrow, la flecha, move very fast. So it's like a shot, es como un disparo. Cuando algo toca la superficie, se activa la trampa, el muelle salta y lanza el arpón o la flecha that has poison inside. Okay, it's poisonous. That paralyzed their prey, and they can hunt them. Okay, so paralizan a las presas con su veneno. So these cells are especially in the tentacles of the Cnidaria. And what else? Yes, and last but not least, let's pay attention to the cycle of the Cnidaria. Basically, a polyp and a jellyfish is the same animal, but in different generations, right? So they have both types of reproduction, sexual and asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction by budding. So let's start with the polyp, right? So this is like a young polyp that grows up, and this is like an adult polyp. The polyp can the polyp has asexual reproduction by budding. Okay, new buds, as I told you, produce more polyps, right? That they live like in a colony, una colonia. When the conditions are right, one of these parts of the polyp can liberate and live freely as a jellyfish, como una medusa. Se separa uno de estos nuevos pólipos, vive libre en el mar en forma de medusa. Jellyfish has sexual reproduction, so they liberate their gametes into the seawater, and then the fertilization take place, and you have a new organism that when it touches the bottom of the sea, starts to grow to form a new polyp, and the cycle repeats again and again. So as you can see, you have two different shapes, the polyp and the medusa, but they are the same animal in different generations. Okay, I think this is very interesting. I always liked it, this vital cycle of the Cnidaria. And I think that's all. the the other thing that is very important is that these animals, they don't have a skeleton, but some polyps can produce like an outer skeleton made of calcium carbonate, right? Like a skeleton, external skeleton made of minerals that protect them. Because they reproduce by budding, they create this skeleton of a lot of surrounded a lot of polyps, and they create what we call a coral. A coral is like a colony of polyps. Okay, imagine that this is a coral. If you pay attention, coral is the outer skeleton which is full of pores or tiny holes. Inside every tiny hole, you can see a tiny polyp living. Okay, so you can see these tentacles. Okay, inside every hole. So this colony create a skeleton which is called the coral. So now you can see the relationship between polyps, jellyfish, coral, and so on. Okay, so these are the most primitive groups of invertebrates, and we will see the following groups in the next lessons. So see you next time. Bye.